there's a different word for it. But this means it took place on a different plane of existence than our normal plane of existence.
Is it wrong to say the same about the Mabul?
No.
So where is he?
V'chol roim with kolos is something which you don't it seems pretty obvious to be a vision, unless you have synesthesia, which maybe is what took place, but that seems to be obviously to be a vision.
So the Rambam does not take the Mabul as an allegory.
No, ever. Yeah.
How do we address the fact that the acronym, the Chassidim, let's say, held of Hashkafa to the nth degree, and the Chassidim Rishayim, when they said that in Parashas, like, how do we end up? Again,
either Kodesh Baruch Hu changed on Haga, or you hold the Chassidim are very wrong, which is what the Chadians hold. Yeah.
That's the only two alternatives.
You could come up with a third one. Those are my two alternatives. So other Rabbah, come up with something. Let me know. ygbackoffer@gmail.com. I put it in my blog, which nobody reads, so it doesn't matter. In terms of Avdus, I wanted to get back to that issue. Slavery isn't another problem. How the Torah sanctions slavery, of course. Before 1860, this wouldn't have been such a problem. And there's a famous speech from some Orthodox rabbi at the time of the Civil War justifying slavery. Some rabbi in New York, I forget who it was. But I put it on my blog recently, and you should go look at it because I'm not going to quote all the sources offhand. There are 3 or 4 sources, rygb.blogspot.com. The Machashavah, which I just learned this year. The Machashavah says, if you learn the end of Parashas Vayera, not Vayera, Parashas Vayigash, it says that Yosef took the people and switched them from city to city, so it says there, Meshachol Nadai, it says he acquired the lands, but he did not acquire the people. They offered themselves as avadim. It doesn't say he accepted them as avadim, because Yosef, like any civilized person, did not like the institution of Avdus. So therefore he rejected their offer to be avadim. Now, the Meshech Chochmah is not some modern Chovevei guy. So obviously the Meshech Chochmah is saying that Avdus is not the ideal state. And of course, Machashavah Hirsch says also a similar idea. He says the institution of Avdus and Am Yisrael is only to educate the people in order to try and get them to the true derech. So you can argue that these are minority views, and you might be right. You can argue that the Meiri, who speaks about Christianity in a positive term, is a minority view, and you're probably right about that. But again, coming back to Elu ve'Elu, and going back to paradox. So Kodesh Baruch Hu provided you with with these different drachim and different approaches, in order for us to ascertain in our hearts for ourselves what is, from our perspective, Ratzon Hashem, and to argue accordingly. And therefore, if I see that the Meshech Chochmah says, and he says in a couple of places, that slavery is a bad thing, I will tell you, really the Torah does not like slavery. The economic system until the Industrial Revolution did not work without slavery. So therefore, it was a necessary evil. But certainly Judaism would work to eradicate slavery at the earliest possible moment.
And how the Torah treats the Eved.
Right,
unique.
That's also the Rambam
is unique.
Yes, right.
I mean, you can't do this, you can't do that. Yeah.
But aren't we trying to figure out what the truth is? When this is the way
there are multiple truths.
Well, but if I believe
There's not Isha Torah that wouldn't work, but there are multiple truths. Well, why you? We can say that.
So let's take out of what you said. If the Meshach Chochmah is probably if I look at the Meshach Chochmah and I say he's wrong, but it works for me psychologically, so that's intellectually dishonest.
Right, don't do that. Don't do that, for sure not. I think the Meshach Chochmah is right, and therefore
But I think that how could I possibly think that's right if I never looked into the topic? But if I were looking into the topic and I came at that it's against all the Rishonim, and I always prefer the perspective of Rishonim because that's more authentic than the view of the Meshach Chochmah.
yeah, that's another why you problem. Then Machashavah the Rishonim are not considered to be more authentic. Whatever they teach, the principle that we go after Rishonim is true in halacha. It's not necessarily true in Machashavah. There's no such principle. It's never stated anywhere.
So what do we say about
What?
Christianity?
That's why you problem. Yeah, I mean, but other people don't think about it. But it's not because you people here think. So it's a compliment. But the issue is Rishonim. We're taught that Rishonim are superior and Achronim are inferior, but it doesn't work that way necessarily in Machashavah. Machashavah, a person, that's why the Maharal was a revolution in Machashavah. That was an Achron, and all Machashavah after that basically comes from the Maharal in some way, shape, or form. Chassidus comes from Maharal in some way, shape, or form. So that is, we don't necessarily, there's no preference necessarily to Rishonim in Machashavah like there is in Halacha.
The way I'm understanding what you're saying is that I don't prefer the Machashavah's opinion because I think it's more correct or more likely to be the Ribbon Shalom's perspective. I like the Machashavah's perspective because in 1865 Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves.
Right, so you should not be intellectually dishonest, and you should not use the Meshech Chachma.
But so then under who should use the Meshech Chachma? Someone
A person who believes it's true. Yes.
But the person who thinks it's true because of American society.
Why? Why do you say that?
Why do they think that?
Meshech Chachma thought it's true. He wasn't in American society. If Sham Shafal Hirsch thought it's true, he was American society. I don't agree with that. I think that there's to use the German term, the Weltanschauung of different people is different based on their tchunos and nefesh. Again, and it could be that we have a paradoxical situation. But I certainly, and you can blame it on the American Revolution, the American Civil War. But my tchunos and nefesh tells me that the Meshech Chachma is correct about this. Yeah.
You're saying that there's multiple truths. Does that you mean that there is nothing? Let's say there's no place that everyone should be trying to get, no truth that everyone should be trying to reach to.
Everybody should be. There is. But there's not multiple truths. There are certain things which there are multiple truths. In Agaritza there is, not in Halacha.
No, right. I mean in Hashkafa. So you're saying that there's different. There's actually, let's say, we'll just give a number. There's 5 different legitimate within the Yiddishkeit. There's 5 different. Now,
Right.
You don't have to say that there's 5. You can say there's one legitimate way, but Hashem, and Hashem just wants us to try our best to get there.
You could say that.
Why would you want to say that there's not one truth?
Because the Gemara in Chagiga says Memches Panim Tamei, Memches Panim Tar, Memches Panim also Memches Panim Mutter, Memches Panim. What are we supposed to do with that Gemara? The Gemara says there are 98. I keep saying Memches. There are 98 ways of looking at things, and they're diametrically opposite. And that's what the Ramchal said. Ramchal says there are 3 madrigas understanding why HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. The first madriga is in the Shari Ramchal, page 404. I remember because it's very powerful impact to me at the time. Says that the lowest level is to believe HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world in order to give manifestation to his capacities. Right. There was everything was created l'chvoida. The second level is the level we're all familiar with, the level of derech hatov lehetiv. Right, and that's the way he created the world. And the third level, he said, is this notion of unity and multiplicity. And he says somebody who did not reach the second level doesn't understand anything. But if you reach the third level, then you understand how the first and second levels are included in it. So this notion, which nowadays contemporary society calls diversity, is something which is intrinsic in Judaism in a different way. And it's mostly freedom of thought, not freedom of practice. But in Hashkafa, there is a tremendous breadth of acceptable ideas and even paradoxical ones.
I don't mean acceptable. That's my question. Is
you have to, you determine what you. See, most people when they give, I'm going to give myself a pat on the back here. Most people when they give shir, they usually take one perspective and give it one perspective. I don't do that. I try to give every perspective, and then I'll say what perspective I think is correct, for whatever reason. So that's how I think people should do it. Right, so that's but that's more the end of kindness, The also Kodesh Baruch Hu allows us machal at tzaddikim, right? So yeah, diametrically opposed. The Satmar guy who believes in anti-Zionism and the Chadal guy who believes in pro-Zionism, they both can be Oivdei Hashem, be Reim and Shleimim.
They both tried their best to reach, the different.
Okay, so then it becomes a moot point who's right.
The Zionist guy they're both right. One of them is right. One of them is
No.
correct.
So there's another thing. I hear. I understand that. So there's something which my grandfather wrote down. I'm overtime already. Okay. By the way, I didn't get to a lot of topics I wanted to get to, but like the authenticity of the Zohar, that's another issue. But we're not going to get to that today. So that's an issue which bothers many people. But so without my grandfather was a Talmud of the Telz, Lithuania, and he brings down from Rabbi Yosef Leib Bloch a very fascinating idea. He says that Yosef Bloch was Rosh Hashanah Telz, and he says that there's a Gemara which you all know in Brachas, which says that they're Masalek Rabbi Gamliel from the Nesius, and Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah became the Nasi, and on that day they added 400 sapsolim to the Beis HaMedrash. Some people say 400 sapsolim. So, and the Gemara says that Gamliel got depressed, and they showed him a dream that night that showed him that there were 800 buckets of ashes. They weren't so in order to show that those people were not worthy of being the Beis Medrash. When it says that under Rabbi Gamliel, somebody who wasn't Tochel Kivoro was not allowed into the Beis Medrash. Reb Tzadok asked, how do they know? What litmus test do we know? Tochel Bar, not Tochel Bar. Reb Tzadok says that the Beis Medrash itself would repel those people not Tochel Kivorim because it was the Beis Medrash of Gamliel. But then the Gemara says Velohi. Says, well, don't derive anything from that dream. That was the Fusei Daite, the Rabbi Gamliel, right? So Yosef Bloch said Rabbi Gamliel was a Tana. He also, when he was wrong, he knew he would admit to being wrung. We're going to give him Tanchuim Shel Hevel and tell him that this is the way the buckets of ashes, even though they're not. So he says an amazing thing. He says there are certain, and this comes back to my paradoxing, there are certain machlokos which are built into the Bria which are never meant to be resolved. They're meant to exist for eternity. It says one of those machlokos is that how you do chinuch. Do you chinuch by educating the elite and then let it trickle down to the masses? Or do education by educating everybody you possibly can? And this was machlokas around Gamliel, Elazar ben Azariah. Rabbi Gamliel believed you educate the elite, and then what trickles down. And Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah believed, no, we lead everybody and whoever wants to come learn. He says there's no correct answer to this question. And Kodesh Baruch Hu created mechanchim who have different perspectives on this, and the machlekes is a machlekes which is meant to last for eternity, with each person doing what they believe to be the true approach. It's like l'shem shamayim soifa liskayim. It gives a whole meaning to it, a different meaning to it. But you know what Rabbi Yisrael Salanter says about l'shem shamayim soifa liskayim? He says if people argue that they don't think l'shem shamayim, eventually they'll come to some sort of agreement. But if everybody thinks they're l'shem shamayim, they're never going to settle the machlokas. But which is something which you see all the time. But Rabbi Yisrael's perspective, I think, is this profound idea that there are meant to be multiple perspectives, and they're both true from their perspective. Yes.
Does God not know the truth about that?
God can create it. There's not one truth. Again, we get back to this idea. Except for the Yugimali Karim, but Judaism is a remarkably flexible religion. Except for the Yugimali Karim, there's nothing else which you must believe.
And in Mitzvahs we would say the same thing, or that we would say different. Let's say the wool is black or white.
Well, you might be insane, but yes, you could argue that point. It's not when they Kari Amuna.
But I'm saying, okay.
What isn't the...
Isn't the question about whether there's one or more than one ontological truth just a question about how you interpret it?
Ontological is also what you only hear in YU. Ontological, teleological, epistemological, these are YU words. Yes.
Isn't this just
the rest of the world does, when you get out there, the rest of the world does not speak that way. They don't know what those words mean. Okay? Yeah.
Isn't this just a question on what approach you take to Elu Be'elu? Aren't there approaches to Elu Be'elu that say that there is one ontological truth?
Yes.
And
yes, there are approaches like that, but that's not my.
We're going according to.
Again. If you could take the Gemara Chagiga, you're right, and it's possible that there is, but the Gemara Chagiga, which I'm using, it seems to be the earliest text and seems to be the most authoritative text. There are Moshe has the Shita, but most of that also has to do with halacha, not with Haggadah. Whenever there's one ontological truth, they usually mean one truth. They usually tell you halacha, not about Haggadah. Yeah.
Why does the Rambam not? Why didn't the Rambam list this as one of the Ikerei Emunah about Torah Shabbat Peh, Emunas Chachamim, things like that?
What do you mean? The Ram writes Torah Shabbat Peh as one of the Ikerei Emunah.
No, it just says Kol Devei Neviim Emes.
No, you have to believe. No, you have to believe that the entire Torah Shabbat Peh is on the Animam. Torah Shabbat Peh and Torah Shabbat Ksav.
It just says Kol Torah Msui B'Yodeinu He Anusul Moshe Rabbeinu. He includes Torah Shabbat Peh.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Why were we bound by the Gimel Ikarim?
Because those are we call the Ikarim for a reason. In other words, that is what makes up Judaism.
According to the Rambam.
Yeah, but okay, if you go read Mark Shapiro's book, and you'll be more convinced that those are the only Ikarim. There's one.
Everyone in the store would have to agree with that. So.
Yeah. They're very, look, I'm not talking about, the Ibn Ezra with the questionable psukim. There's tinkering at the fringes. But the core, these 13 Ikarim are the core, and by and large, without those small variations, yes, that's what Judaism consists of. That's halacha, because it's what you have to believe. The Ram, of course, holds, if you don't believe it, you're crazy. But that is halacha.
Is that Sinai or is that Rambam?
No, it's Pisina. Ram believes it's Pisina. Yeah.
Okay, so I also thought about this, multiple truths, possibility within Avodat Hashem. I don't know, is this valid as a thought to why that would be true? I remember hearing my Rebbe read for me, I guess Shub Min HaShamayim or something like that, where whoever the rabbi is.
What are we showing him here? What are we showing him?
So whoever that Rishon is, he greeted Hashem very nicely, and then after said, like, what's the story? I asked one question, and then finally Hashem answered and saying it was machloket between me and the Malachim.
Well, we have a case like that in the Gemara with, that's why, who was it? Rabba summoned to Shemayim, because Machloket between Kodesh Baruch Hu and Malachim. Yeah, so that's an amazing concept. Yeah. Yeah. Kodesh Baruch Hu, when he made the Bria, he made certain rules. And one of the rules he made is he stepped back. And even though he is Kol Yachol and all that, he relates to us as if we have a role in this. That's how it works. Getting back to what the Dora Floga. It's a man, Kodesh Baruch Hu said they have to come down and change their language. What do you mean you have to change their language? You're God. Just zap them. Right? Why don't you just zap them to get rid of them? So Kodesh Baruch Hu made an amazing principle, which is unity is powerful. That's why the door of David, they would go out to war and they would fall. The door of Achav, they would go out to war and they wouldn't fall. So Kodesh Baruch Hu plays by the rules. And they knew that. And they were using unity in order to fight HaKadosh Baruch Hu according to his rules. So, yes, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created a world which Malachi Asharis, human beings, they have a role together with Hashem. That's how he created the world. Otherwise, the world would be pointless. Yeah.
We can see multiple truths, then why can't it be that Islam, Christianity, and Judaism are only true?
It could be, but they're absurd. It's like saying the wall's black. You have to, that's the problem with Christianity. They are, I can explain to you why they're absurd, but I'm way over time. But there are certain things, again,
there are times where one of the people meant to time him will think the other person, the other Tom is absurd also.
Right. So
you
right.
tell him that you shouldn't think that maybe that's...
So the Rambam says the Gimel Ikarim are so logical that anybody who doesn't believe in them is insane or deceiving himself. And there are, of course, not everything is multiple truths. There are certain things which are core, the core. It just happens to be that the core is much smaller than people realize. Okay, Shkoyach Rabbi Say, have a good Shabbos.
Just say what the general topics were that you missed.
The Zohar, Richard Dawkins, Common Sense, Heroes, History versus Science, and Rivadim.